3, 2, 1, and now on Chatterbox UK, we welcome Dimar from the good old US of A. Dimar, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
When I got sent the sent your song, I thought, yeah, there's something special here. But by the time we got to the second line, I thought there's something special here. So yeah, not
Thank you.
like the other lockdown songs, as I said to you off air. This is the fourth one to make the grade in a year out of 1,000. You're done all right. There you go.
Hey, thank you, man. Glad we made the cut.
Yeah, very good. Very polished. And, of course, you're in good company there as well. And, of course, on next week's show, we'll also be talking to Roger Starr so they can hear the other side of it. It is what I like doing when we've got a sort of a duo-type thing when we have two interviews. And, of course, we've got a great singer involved as well, which maybe you'll tell me a bit about her before we finish today. So let's get started, Dimar. I mean, music-wise, did you come from a musical family, or how did you get to where you are now? The guys here sat in front of me. Big journey.
Well, I did come from a musical family. My mother was a singer and an actress. I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, and I used to go to rehearsals with my mom for her plays and such, and
Sure.
just kind of got the bug there and had my first drum set, like a paper drum set at like 5 or 6 years old.
Wow.
And just kind of fell in love with music from there, man. You know, played in school bands,
Yeah.
concert band, symphony orchestra, jazz band in junior high, high school. Went to Jackson State University, majored in music there as a percussion major. And, you know, that's where it all started.
That's cool. Now, obviously, you wanted a drum set, but were your family, your mum especially, was she sort of like keen on you having it? Because a 6-year-old with a drum kit, I imagine, makes quite a bit of noise.
Yeah,
did she bless the idea from day one when you wanted a drum set? Was that all cool?
Well, actually, my mom has always been like my greatest supporter. She's been really cool. She got me the drum set to kind of save my life because I was using spoons and playing on the edge of her sofa, and I had worn out the edge of the sofa.
Wow.
And she had it reupholstered, and she's like, you know what? I'm going to have to get you something to play on so that I don't have to spank you for tearing up my furniture. But once I got my drums, I mean, she never stopped me from practicing. She actually bought earmuffs so that when I practiced, she didn't have to be disturbed. And she's like, oh, after a while, it started to sound musical, but she never stopped me. And I think she was just glad that I was doing something that was productive or whatever, and it was something I loved. So she kind of just put up with it.
So, I mean, you've got quite a journey to get to where you are now. So we got that 6-year-old with his first drum kit and mum with the earmuffs on and so on. As you went through school, maybe teenage years or whatever, did you join a group, a band at all, and became the drummer of them? What sort of happened next from the age of 6 until the next part of your journey?
Well, first band I played in was my senior year in high school. We formed this band called Full Circle with some pals of mine from the high school. And my first year in college, we had a couple of more friends from the university, changed the name of the band to Infinity. And we played together, but I also kind of cut my teeth playing what they call the Chitlin circuit.
Cool.
And I played with a bunch of, you know, mentors, people at Malaco Records and all of the blues guys around the blues scene from, you know, Bobby Rush,
Yeah.
Cadillac George Harris, Patrice Monsell, Vasti Jackson. I mean, the list just goes on. And we would play these juke joints every night of the week, just learning, you know, how to play the blues, how to play soul music and R&B, you know, how to be a performer. And I did all of that stuff and was gigging. And in 1995, I got blessed with an opportunity to audition for Little Richard. And that was like the kind of the craziest thing because this lady, Linda Jacobs, that was co-managing the band I was in at the time, Infinity, she was a director for this festival called Jubilee Jam, and she had befriended Little Richard, and he mentioned to her that he was looking for a young Black drummer to augment his band, because for years, kind of like James Brown, he would on and off, he would have 2 drummers. So she's like, oh, I have the perfect guy. So she gives me the number to call And I'm thinking that I'm going to be calling an assistant
Sure.
or someone, but it's actually Little Richard. He answers the phone like, "Oh,
Wow.
hello." I was like, I was told to call this number. "Oh, this is Little Richard, baby. How you doing?" And I'm like
Amazing.
nervous and freaked out. He said, "Oh, can you? I want to know if you can play my music." So he had me go to the record store, and I bought the specialty version of his greatest hits. So I come back, call him back. I was like, "Yes, sir, I can play this."
I
And he's
guess
like, "Okay, I'll call you back tomorrow." And he sends me a plane ticket the next day, like on a Tuesday. And on that Thursday, I flew out to audition for Little Richard. And long story short, 17 years later, you know,
Wow.
I spent 17 years in his tutelage and
That's cool.
soaking up all of the stuff he had to give.
That is just amazing. So 1995, given his phone number, phone up. Richard, Little Richard wants. I love it. But Little Richard answers the phone. So you actually, and by the next, I love the fact you got the greatest hits. I'd have done the same. Mind you, I wouldn't have sounded like you, trust me, but I would have got the hits. And then the next day, it sounds like the older what you put together of him was brilliant. And I dare say you were actually on first name terms, not Little Richard, but I guess it was just Richard, because it's Richard Penniman was his name, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
So
It's like, he was
cut the
he's
little
very
out.
very informal right away. "Oh, just call me Richard, baby." And and when the weirdest thing about that experience was, because I've been in, of course, being in high school and college or whatever, I'd been involved in auditions before, but I'd never been involved in an audition like this, because not only was he auditioning me as a musician, but he was auditioning me as a person.
Sure. Yeah.
And I went and I spent 2 weeks in LA. Like, we didn't play any music. We just hung out, and he took me around his family, and we went to dinner. And, he was basically just checking me out as a person to see.
Got you. Yeah.
And I hung out with, actually, which became one of my best friends, as an adopted son, Danny Jones. And Danny took me around LA, and I had been there 2 weeks before we even got a chance to play. And the actual audition was not even it was weird. Like, we had a room rented at SIR, and we got there a bit late, quintessential Richard style, and we had missed our time. So he was hanging out with Grady Gaines, that used to, play guitar with him.
Yeah.
So Grady had a spot in South Central, like old juke joint. So we just went over there and just, I walked in, it's an old tore up drum set, honky tonk piano, just old juke joint. And we just sit down, and Richard and Grady are exchanging stories. And while they're exchanging stories, we'll play music. I'm not realizing that this is actually my audition.
Okay.
And the weirdest thing is that we never played one Little Richard song. All we played was old blues songs.
Okay.
And me not really knowing this was my audition, so I'm being myself. "Oh man, that's cool, Rich." So after about an hour and a half of that, he's like, "Oh man, this is great. I tell you what, I heard enough. Let's go get something to eat." "Great, you sound great. You got the gig. We open up for the Temptations next week in Cerritos." And I was like, "What? What just happened? Like, we didn't play any of your music?" He's like, "Oh no, baby. He said, "No, anybody that plays for me, I got to teach them how to play this music anyway. You're a good person. I check you out. You say yes, sir, or no, sir. You love your mama. I can teach you the rest."
Yep. And I dare say he wanted to check out how you were with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And rock and roll was good, and that was that.
That was good. Right?
Yeah. I do love that man. He had a couple of hits here in the late 80s. One of them was courtesy of a movie called Down and Out in Beverly Hills, and I just remember the clip in the film. And I'm sure he was floating. He was like this floating island in this swimming pool, playing his piano. And I don't know if it's how was it? How rock and roll. Anyway, he had a couple of good hits here in the 80s. Probably his biggest hits for 30 odd years. So yeah, I got a lot of time for that man. And when he did pass away last year on my Saturday Night Live show I do here in England, we did a very special spot for it, and people were sharing their memories and emails were flying. So yeah, we did do our bit for him, and what a special guy he was in a lot of people's hearts, and especially yours, because you knew the guy and he gave you work for 17 years. Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
So brilliant. When you were in those 17 years, so from 95 onwards, were you, were you only with Little Richard some of the time and you were doing other stuff also? Were you
But
like drumming elsewhere?
yeah, like
Uh-huh.
Richard was like my main gig, but I also in '95 that same year I actually opened a production company
Mm-hmm.
called Airtight Productions. We actually I had a label as well, and I produced a record on a hip hop group called Wildlife Society that
Mm-hmm.
was signed to a TBT Records in New York. So as well as playing with Richard, I was always writing songs and producing, R&B, soul,
Mm-hmm.
pop, just music for different artists, and then playing with just various artists all
Mm-hmm.
over the world.
Cool.
When I lived in Mississippi, I did that stuff. I was the MD for Mississippi, the first Mississippi night at the Grammy Museum,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that gig was the Williams brothers, Honey Boy Edwards, um, the Dorothy Moore, and Eddie Cotton. And
Sure.
so I just did a bunch of stuff. Moved out to California, and I've played with just tons of artists
Great stuff. Yeah.
out here. So along with while I was playing with Richard, I was always doing my own businesses and production, and playing with any and everybody I could in
Brilliant.
between those gigs.
Well, that was a very busy 17 years for you. So we got 95. So we're getting to sort of like well, almost the present day, aren't we? There. So now we get ourselves to this this awful lockdown. Say March last year, whenever officially became a lockdown with you guys over that side of the pond. Ours was the end of March here when the lockdown happened. I see, a year on, you got very creative, but was the creativity juices, were they flowing straight away, or did it give you a chance to complete some other bits that you put aside for a few years? I mean, take us from like March last year to this song that we're going to talk about in a moment. So what happened in that year,
Well, yeah, I've always said that songwriting is my day job. So even
Uh-huh.
with Richard, I heard like I'm an immense Prince fan. And years ago, I heard Prince say, you should write a song a day,
Okay.
like every day, just write a song a day and so for a number of years, that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I completed it, I did. So I literally have hundreds of songs in my backlog, but I was gigging so much, like I'm always recording, but I never really had time to finish a lot of stuff or see it all the way through. And at the beginning of the lockdown, I was like, oh, okay, well now I don't really have to play for many other people. So I'll just work on my music.
Mm-hmm.
And I started studying a lot of the marketing with Spotify algorithms and Instagram and the social media thing, taking tutorials, really digging into figuring out how to market my music and really get success out of that. Mm-hmm. And I just started releasing music. I was like, oh, I had all of this stuff. And I just started releasing music. Every month I was putting out a new record, and the numbers got, I got more and more streams and more attention. And it's like, oh, okay, I just keep doing it. Along with, I not only stayed away from playing a little bit because my partner, Kid Anderson, which I work with, Rick Ashton and the Nightcats, has Greaseland Records. And we started doing all these streaming concerts for this website, Can't Stop the Blues. And I think I played maybe 15 of those shows last year.
Wow.
With various artists, because I was in the house man at the studio, so the kid would call up and say, hey man, come do this. So in between doing that, I just kind of started putting out my own music, and I've probably got 5 completed albums on the shelf, and then I'm always writing new music. And then Roger and I became friends about, it's like 2016, I think. We met in Coretta for the first time.
Mm-hmm. You guys have actually met in real life, or is it you've actually met in person, have you?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful, because I didn't know, because this is a wonderful thing that we're doing now. I mean, we're talking about a lockdown in 2020, 2021. But you think about those poor people 100 years ago with the Spanish flu. No internet, no nothing, and even we can educate each other this way as well as share music. It's just amazing how even in my life, in my 30 years as radio, how far we've come. Isn't it incredible? I didn't envisage this as a kid growing up that we could do this one day.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So these 5 albums you got on the shelf now, is that actually produced in these 5 just from the lockdown?
Well, I've kind of...
So that is well creative if it is.
Yeah, it's like and it's weird, like, because I say this, people don't think like I write a lot. Just
Mm.
in the last, because I have a notebook here
Uh-huh.
on my screen, and I've written 75 songs since the beginning of this year.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. 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 Okay.
And so it was like I always had that kind of output. And so I just like, I'm pulling these songs and say, okay, these songs, I'll pull 10 songs together that fit this concept or these songs. So
Hmm.
yeah, those 5 records weren't all written during the lockdown. It was like I kind of pulled old stuff and I wrote a lot of new stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm always editing. It's kind of like, oh, okay, well, I'll figure out what the next concept will be, and
Hmm.
then when Roger ended up writing
Mm.
this song, because Roger and I will work, since we met a few years back, like I was very impressed with him.
Sure.
And first of all, I should say how Roger and I met. We met at the Paretta Soul Festival
Hmm.
in 2016. I was in the house band, Anthony Paul Soul Orchestra. And that first year, I think he was there with George McCrae.
Yep. He's coming on in a couple of weeks' time. I look forward to that. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Carry
Yeah,
on. Sorry. Yeah.
but he produced, and Roger and I immediately, he's a perfectionist. He's such a great musician, and we immediately just hit it off. There's a connection, and
Cool.
I laugh because Roger, he's like he was telling the band, what we needed to do, and he has this statement he used, and I never heard anybody use it. I thought it was funny, and most people say relax or lay back, and Roger's like, here we want to chill the groove. We're just going to
Nice.
chill the groove a bit. And I was like, that is so cool. But
Yeah.
and the thing about Paretta, it's a small village, so we got to hang out a lot
Sure.
off stage, and I got to know Roger, and so we just kind of kept corresponding. And then maybe a year or two after that,
Hmm.
he returned with John Ellison,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and he and I, by that time, we had been communicating via social media, what have you,
Mm.
and we were sharing when he did the song last year, "Wake Up Call" with John. I contributed some percussion stuff, and I did some horn arranging on that, and we were just kind of like trading stuff back and forth. And during the lockdown, he wrote the song and he sent it to me. He's like, "Hey man, see what you can do with this. See what you think
Mm.
about this." And he sent me the lyrics, and I made some edits and recorded vocals, and we just sent stuff back and forth for weeks.
Hmm.
I would send him something. He's like, okay. And Roger's very detailed. He would send me 2 or 3 paragraphs of notes. Like, here, I'm not quite feeling this. This is great, but this could be better. And I would do it, and we send it back, and we ended up with this song, and we're both very happy with it, and the initial response has been very good too.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, okay, I tried to get this sort of like pinned down. So, the song it came out on April the 2nd, Bridges
Yeah.
of Faith. Now, you talked about that bit, getting that to about a couple of years after you and Roger first met. But I'm just trying to get my head around. Maybe I've missed it. Lockdown kicked in, as far as I'm aware, most places around the world, March last year. At what point did Bridges of Faith, that I see as a completed song now, at what point did you two guys, from May 2020 onwards, what point in that year did you start getting this together between yourselves? Would you say?
Well, we actually started on it this year, at the top
Okay.
of this year.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was at the top of this year because we were talking about a lot of other stuff last year. And as we were I think it's like as we were kind of making it into this year, at the top of the year, thinking, okay, we're about to get out of it. And then it just seems like, okay, but we don't know how much longer. Then the new variants, and we may have to go, and in certain places had to go back into lockdown. And
Uh huh.
and then that's when we started on the song at the top of this year.
No, perfect, and what a great song it is. I mean, I would imagine, not trying to take words out your mouth, but I should imagine that you are pretty much very proud to be associated with Bridges of Faith.
Oh, very,
You know,
very, very
got
much.
to be,
It's,
haven't
it's a great song with a great message
you?
for the right time, I think.
Definitely, and everyone's going to hear it at the end. It's 60 plus stations around the world, so hopefully we'll hit some areas that have not heard it yet as well, including 12 stations in New Zealand. So maybe you haven't got an audience there, but you will have after this. That's good.
Awesome.
Now, Dimar, there's another. Now we've got Roger coming on the show next week, but there's a lady involved as well who does some singing on there. Do you mind telling us a bit about her? please?
Yeah, yeah. Her name is Angela Walls, and I've worked with Angela, man, over 20 years. I actually produced her solo record called From These Lips, which was released last year as well. But she is one of the best kept secrets in the southeastern United States. I mean, she's done background and vocal arrangements for tons of Southern soul artists, like Willie Clayton and TK Soul, just tons of people. But she's an amazing songwriter and vocal arranger. And when Roger and I were working on the song, I was demoing the background vocals, and I'm a stylist at best. I don't consider myself like a Luther Vandross and Al Green singer. But when we were doing the backgrounds, I came up with the parts, and I just called her and I said, Roger, do you mind if I send this to my friend? He's like, no, I trust you. And I sent it to her and gave her the ideas, and she just went to work and does the great work she does. And that's Angela Wall. She's just genius.
Wonderful. And obviously you've worked with her 20 years, so you knew what you'd be getting. You had expectations and you got it. So that's really good. Just want to hear a little bit about her, because obviously I'm interviewing you two guys over 2 weeks. So yeah, just interested in that. That's cool. Do you now this Bridges of Faith, I think I mentioned already, it was released, available all around the world from April the 2nd, already out. All the usual platforms around the world. It can be downloaded from you. Now, how about a website for yourself? So does DeMar have a website, Facebook group, pages, whatever social media you got? Would you like to just chuck it at the listeners now, please?
Sure. Website is dmarmusic.com. Instagram is at D1971MAR.
Yep.
Facebook is DMAR Music Online.
Okay.
And Twitter is at DMAR Music.
Perfect. And I'm sure if anyone didn't quite catch them, they can either listen to the Listen Again facilities on my own platforms, or they've only got to put in DMAR, really, haven't they, on the search engine, and it sounds like they're pretty much going to find you. It's a amazing project that you've done. It's worked really well. I liked it when I, 2 lines grabs me, because I don't listen much longer, I can assure you, if I don't like something. So, yeah, 4 out of 1,000 lockdown songs. You've got the 4th one. Well done. And now you've sort of opened my eyes. I mean, do throw some other stuff at me when it comes out, and I'll always give it a listen. And give us updates. You got my email address, I believe, now. So just give me updates, and I do scan through the lines. But it's been great reaching out each to each other. And I wish you every success with that and the future.
Thank you so much, man. And thank you for your time.
True professional, and I've enjoyed every second of it. And it's been an utter pleasure, DeMar. I'll assure you.
Thank you, man. The pleasure's mine as well.
Thank you, and you take good care. All right, take care. Cheers, then. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye bye. Bye bye.